Coach and Counselor explores how today's youth benefit from intentional, empowering adult leadership. Each episode blends perspectives from coaches, mentors, players, and mental health professionals shaping the next generation on and off the field. From tough conversations to inspiring transformations, we dive into what it takes to support young people in today's world. Okay, welcome Coach and Counselor, and welcome Jon Karcich to the episode here. Jon has a long history in baseball, was the 7th round pick by the Angels out of Santa Clara. Coached 10 years at the Division I level, some of that at Stanford and a larger portion of that at Santa Clara as well, and has shared the baseball field with 30 different draft picks over the last decade. But Jon, recently in 2025, just decided to stop coaching to spend more time with his 3 young kids. You can find Jon on jonkarcich.com, Instagram and X at Jon Karcich, and also has a podcast series, which is one of my favorite names, by the way, Success Leaves Clues. So Success Leaves Clues with Jon Karcich. Jon, something that I say all the time, success leaves clues. If you want to be successful, you should do what other successful people do. So I love how you named your podcast. I went in and kind of dove into some of them. You have some great topics. Feelings aren't facts was one of the ones that I saw. One on emotional intelligence, which hopefully we can talk about today. Do simple better is one of my other favorites. And then nobody cares. So check those out. Jon's podcast series is, basically are all about 2 to 4 minute little episodes, which is great. Most people don't listen to 45-minute plus podcasts. So those quick little one hitters are a fantastic approach. Jon, thanks for coming on. Tell us exactly about everything that you're doing right now since you left the coaching world.
Yeah, appreciate it, Tony. So when I stepped away from coaching, that's people coach because they love coaching, right? And they love being on the field. And when I decided to step away to spend more time with my 3 young kids, who are now 4.5, 3, and 9 months, is I said, okay, well, how am I going to still do what I love and be around my family more and be more present? And I was like, well, what if I just create what exactly I've done in the past, but now do it on the other side of the fence, as opposed to being with an organization or a team, school. Now I'm on the family side of the fence. And really, Tony, what I realized thinking about like a mission statement or just like a goal or like what am I going to evolve this around is we would spend so much time recruiting players in college. And let's just use a college incoming freshman out of high school, for example, is that if we brought in 10 players, which used to be what it was, now it's probably cut in half as college seniors to freshmen, was of those 10, you would probably say that 1 to maybe 2 were ready to play mentally. Probably 3 to 4 were ready to play physically, and the rest were not ready to play. Insert maybe a red shirt, insert maybe just a development year, however you wanted to word it. And so in an age where less high school kids are getting recruited, in an age where if you don't perform, you get booted, my goal is to help the player, not only a high school player, I work with junior college kids and, in transfers as well. It's like, how are we going to have more of an impact day one? As opposed to, as one would say, is like, are we going to thrive or are we going to survive? And the athletes I work with, our emphasis is we want to thrive. And so what I'm really teaching them is I'm teaching them what the process is like earlier, what to expect more, and how to take action quicker as opposed to waiting. And giving them, as success leaves clues, giving them what maybe a college player is doing right now and implementing that into their life immediately. And I work with high school players from a sophomore to junior to senior, and what I've realized is that the most impact I could have on a kid is that sophomore, because they're just scratching the surface, and I can get involved early enough. And I don't have all the answers by any means, but I use my experience to pass that along. Is let's start to implement it and adjust our habits and our systems, and so that we could start to see some more development a little bit quicker and more intentional. The junior senior comes to me. It's unfortunately like unfortunately they tried to go through it, and what they've been doing isn't necessarily working, so they need to add somebody in to come in and adjust. Totally normal. I would bet on myself too, and go through it and hope for the best. And then, but like we say, that like there's resources out there all the time now, whether financially or fit wise, it lines up. That's a different story. But what it really comes down to is I want to be involved on the kid's journey within the family. I want to be able to communicate upfront and honest with the family. I want to really give him three different perspectives. I want to give him perspectives based off of what my lens is on it from a recruiting coordinator side. So this is where your skill set's at right now. This is why I would recruit you. This is why I would not recruit you in all your facets of your game. And then I put on my coach hat and I say, this is how we're going to get there. And then I put on my mental performance hat, which I've had, as a player, I've been fortunate enough to have, Ken Revisa as a mentor on the mental performance side. Brian Kane, who worked under Ken Revisa when we were there at Santa Clara. And so I have a lot of experience, and then I played at a high level. And I failed at a high level, right? And I've had some success too. And it's like, okay, so let me blend that all in together into my own experience, and let's hammer home the mental game. And that is the biggest separator. And so if somebody does work with me, then they're absolutely getting the mental performance side of it, because that is the separator when you want to either thrive or survive when you get on campus. So in summary, that's what I'm doing, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm loving the journey and teaching the kids and the parents that this is a process for the long haul.
So, so definitely helping them with recruiting, number one, helping them with physical development, so skill development, and then emotional and mental preparation, right? Is that the super short summary there?
Exactly. Mental performance, recruiting, advising, and skill development. Yep.
Excellent. And then you mentioned that sophomores were kind of you're feeling like you have more time with them if you can reach them. Their sophomore is a freshman perhaps better? I mean, as you start to do this more, are you going to shift or potentially shift the age ranges of what your target audience might be?
You know, I don't think the freshmen, just because they haven't really experienced enough to know, right? They're still getting their feet wet with high school, and they're still going through that, puberty of they haven't lifted, they're not physical enough. What I would tell a freshman, honestly, is like, just learn your body. I'll tell this to anybody, but just go learn your body a little bit more, right? Like, because you don't have to start on the recruiting side as a freshman. You later in your sophomore year, yeah, you need to start thinking about it if you're the right type of player. And I'll let a family know, it's like, you guys are a year away from even talking about recruiting. Like, just pump the brakes and put that energy somewhere else. And so, like, have I talked to a couple freshmen? Yeah, I have. And I've gotten going on the mental performance side a little bit on that to clean up some habits and create more awareness and clarity within their life, within skill development for sure. But like recruiting wise, that can definitely hold a little bit longer from that side of it. So, and there, honestly, Tony, I talked to junior college players where, they're more mature, they have more experience, but more of our conversations aren't about recruiting. It's more about how they're handling failure. What's their response to the situation? What are they doing to control the things? Because I don't care if you're playing little league or if you're playing in the big leagues, it's the same thing that's going through your mind, right? And you're chasing results, your approach changes, you're overdoing it. And so like starting to own it and understand yourself, like those are the conversations I'm having with the older guys, that are in college.
Let's start with recruiting, because it's just changed so much in the last couple of years. How in the heck do you even start that conversation with the high school kid who, I'm sure when they come to you has aspirations to play at the Power 4 level, um, whether they have the skill set to play at that level or not. How are you actually approaching the conversation of recruiting, knowing that there's less and less high school kids getting recruited, and there's a ton more risk when they walk onto that campus now?
Yeah, I really talk about the experience that they want to have. Is what is your as a family, what do you guys value, right? What do you want to get out of this situation? When you look back in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, what are you going to look back and what are you going to cherish about your experience? Okay, and I ask them what are some important factors that you guys would want to look back on, and usually it's the parents that are leading these answers, and it's for me, I'll answer that for me, looking back here on 15 years, is did I play? That's very important, right? Because I don't care if you win a national championship. I've never done it, so I can't really, I guess, say that. Is if you win a championship, a conference championship, but you didn't play, is that a good experience for you? 10, 15 years back from now, right? You're going to say, yeah, we won it, but I didn't play. I don't have any stats. You grind, those are some dog days you're grinding through, right? And you had a good time celebrating, and your team won, which is helps it. But did you play? Was your team somewhat successful? Did you compete? Right? Um, what was your education like? That's helping you now to probably support your family, right? Get you another job. Um, and as I say, is like when you get married, who are your groomsmen? Are those
Yes.
the dudes that were in your locker room, your high school teammates, but also your college teammates, your roommate? Like, if you could surround yourself with that, and you're still in a group chat with those guys, and you're still reunion with those guys, that's a good experience, you know. And or is it the opposite, right? Are you chasing just I want to go to the best school possible, and then all of a sudden you're gone from there after a year, and then you go to another school and you don't like the fit, and then and now like you're all over the place. And I'm sure you'll meet some great friends along the way, no doubt about it. But it's different than, grinding 3, 4 years with a player and a coaching staff. That's another part of it is like that coaches, numbers wise, like throughout the year, you're going to be around this coaching staff for probably 3 quarters of the year. And you act like the 5 people you hang around with. So whatever that head coach, whatever that offensive coach, pitching coach that you're around every single day, they're going to mold you into a young man, and they're going to teach you what to do and what are their values and culture like within the walls of the clubhouse. That's what we need to think about on the recruiting side of it. And then we start to work backwards. Okay. And a lot of times it's like I don't have my families give me a target list. I want them, they should think about like where they would like to go based off of those questions that I just asked. But in reality, like when I was in high school, let's talk about dating. I wanted to date the supermodel. I wanted, the Sports Illustrated swimsuit. Yeah, line them all up. Well, guess what? Unrealistic.
Yeah.
And I could have a list of 10 schools, and all of a sudden I go play the summer and not one of those schools is interested in me. But a school that wasn't even on my radar pops up and they show a lot of interest. You bet I'm going to have interest in that school
Yeah.
because we want to go where we're wanted.
Right. Yeah.
And so I try to explain that to them.
You said a couple things that I just wanted to hit home on. You act like the 5 people that you surround yourself with. I think that's fantastic. Um, and then one thing in my assistance of helping other kids get recruited, I started down that path of said, hey, give me a target list, and I had found, and I got away from that as well, and I got away from it because it really became deflating, right? Because everyone wants to date the hottest chick in the room, and when you're not capable of marrying the hottest chick in the room, then you become sad about that. And so, as opposed to asking them where they wanted to go, inevitably they don't make that decision totally, right? There's reciprocity in the relationship. You are going to have a relationship. There's reciprocity, and they need to love you as much as you love them, and so you just kind of let that happen. So I think that was well said, and I'm glad that you're taking that approach as well. So, aspirationally, right, you have three young kids and they're going to be, reaching that point. And I'm sure a lot's going to change between now and then, so I won't hold you to this. But what path, not talking about a school, but what path do you think is an ideal path for, say, your son, who, let's just assume, has that, a similar skill set as you do, that has an ability to get drafted in the top 10 rounds someday? What path would you suggest that he takes based on the information that you know today?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll just talk generally more so about kind of about the youth, if you will.
Okay.
And 'cause my kid's he's 4, and so I got he's naturally around the game. I just put out a podcast today, and it was teach your kids how to lose more,
Hmm.
and it was essentially about learning to lose. And what I said was like, specifically my son, whose name's Jeter, so I might even, that was my favorite player. I love the way Derek Jeter played the game. And so he'll know who Derek Jeter is. That's a start. But my whole thing, and as I'm going through, being a parent for the, first few years of maybe some organized sport, nothing serious by any means, right? Is I want him to fall in love with the game and want to play. Dad, let's go in the front. Let's go play. Right now he wants to play kickball. Let's go play kickball. Great. And what I'm learning is that if I can, and what I observe from other families as well, success leaves clues, is the parents that are so hard on their kids at a young age, we see the trend that kid usually doesn't respond well to failure because they see it in their parents' eyes because they're always watching. Is that like, my dad's getting so upset, my parents we're talking about the coach, we're talking about why Timmy's playing and I'm not playing, or he's starting here and he's starting there. And so understanding just like the response to losing and the response to winning is really important for me as a parent here, to understand if the best players respond the best with their body language, with their demeanor, with being able to turn the page, then I need to start to focus naturally, right? As a parent, you're trying to do things like incognito to understand it, right? Just naturally prove a point. Is like, I need to be able to have him respond better to losing, to learning how to lose, to really put in a good effort, right? And so, like, for example, Tony, is we'll be playing kickball or baseball or whatever sport. He got his first couple hockey sticks, right? And it's like, all I say is that was a really good try, or like, that was a really good effort, way to run really hard there, or that was a really good slide. And we don't talk about, he keeps score and he tries to keep score, right? And it's like, we don't, and I let him win majority of the time, but the effort and his attitude about it is really important. And when it comes to like learning to lose, I think that's really important. And don't get me wrong, I would like to teach him how to win too, no doubt about it. But if he's going to play baseball, Tony, and any kid's going to play baseball, because how often do you see the little leagues and the kids, they're throwing their stuff and they're crying and they don't know how to handle it. Like, there's emotion in that, and there's growing up, but like, I want him to process that, like, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And it's okay, because when I was in the minor leagues and I would strike out and I would go for 3, I was carrying that with me home. I was trying to go hit extra, and I would take it to the next day and say, I got to do better. And that's not the recipe to respond. And so as we're playing here and inviting him to, hey, this is kickball, this is fun. Okay, let him be safe a lot of the times. But now I'm starting to transition that a little bit more, right? So if I'm going to let him win 10 out of 10 when he was 3 years old or 4 years old, now all of a sudden I'm going to start to let him win 70% of the time. And then I'm going to start to eventually, as time goes, flip that so that it's 3 out of 10, because that's what baseball is about.
Yep.
And you could use this correlation to soccer and any sport that he may play. But to kind of go back to it, and long-winded answer is that for a youth is, if they want to go develop, let's look at what high level coaches want. They want high character. They want a strong mental game. They want good approaches at the plate. They want bat to ball skills, hand eye coordination, and a lot of other factors could be taught. Obviously, bat speed and adjustability and all those things. But like, if we could teach some high motor skills and coordination early on as a youth and keep them really athletic, then more times than not, some coach, some scout will want a player down the road. There's no scout that says he's too athletic and his hand-eye coordination is too good,
Yep.
or he swings the bat too hard, or he has too good of an eye at the plate. Okay, so let's look at what they want. Let's work backwards a lot. And as a young parent here with young kids, it's like, how do I just sprinkle those things into it and build on it? So like, hand-eye coordination is a big topic for me, with a young kid. But build the athlete and then fine-tune it. And that leads into maybe a sophomore year, why I think a sophomore is good, because they're kind of on that trend, and we could start building it and adjust and focus on those points I just made, so that we can start to evolve those more and then fine-tune them as well.
You kind of touched on some skills there, and so let's kind of segue into your skill development aspect of what you do. My lead-in question is how different you kind of potentially can tie recruiting and skill development into it. We'll tailor the mental part of this later. But how different was recruiting at Santa Clara from Stanford when it came to the skill development of the athlete that was going in there? How different, at the time, Power Four, or I guess Stanford's still in a Power Four level, just bouncing around to conferences. But how different was recruiting that type of athlete from a skill standpoint from a Santa Clara athlete?
The biggest difference is probably size, right? The on the mound, the 6'1" pitcher who throws 88 to 91 with secondary stuff, all things are equal. That guy doesn't always get looked at for the Power Four, unless there's some outlier stuff, of course. But if that guy was 6'4" and he's 88 to 91, because there's more upside, right? And so same thing is like your left-handed hitting shortstop. Well, Power Fours love the left-handed hitting shortstop. You're 5'9", you're probably going to be a mid-major guy. You're 6 foot or more, then you're probably going to be a Power Four guy. And so when we would play at Santa Clara, when I was playing at Santa Clara, and we would play Stanford, it wasn't always like their pitcher had much better stuff or velocity. There's definitely a depth factor to that. They might have had 8 or 9 of those guys, and a mid-major might only have 2 or 3 of them. Definitely that's a factor. But you look around the field and it's like, not who's a better baseball player, but who's the better athlete and who's the bigger athlete. Santa Clara might have had the 185-pound player. Stanford might have had the 200-pound player. And that can go for any power school from that side of it. And I think that's what you see. You see a little bit more of a polished person and player on the field more consistently. Now, the beauty of baseball, Tony, this, is I don't care who you are, what you look at, how you throw it. You could beat anybody on any given day, and I think that's the beauty of the game. Whereas other sports might be a little bit different. But I would probably say that in terms of a physical standpoint. Recruiting wise, it's when you're at Stanford, when you're at an academic school, you are already narrowed down who's a potential recruit academically, just based probably down to 25%. Right. And so then you get to pick from those 25%, and it probably gets down quickly cut down to 5%. So you're picking, it's harder to find the 5%, maybe at a bigger school, but when you you're looking in the right place, you can identify maybe who's a better player, who's a better athlete. And let's be honest, a dream school for anybody in the country would be Stanford, or a high, like a Duke, right?
Yeah.
And so like when you look around in the right places, you can go ahead and be a little bit more selective, a lot more selective.
Great. Great answer. So tell me specifically though what you're doing now from a skill development standpoint to help these high school kids be better prepared when they walk onto, whatever campus that is, if they're, genetically gifted enough to walk into Stanford or are more of a, mid-major, even a Division II level kid. Right? What?
Yeah, it's really, like I said, it's the same game at every level. So
Yeah.
there's no like, oh, you're going D2, so these are your drills. You're going. No, it's the intent behind it, Tony, right? And so if a player's local or he flies in and we work together, right? Like then I'm specifically getting my eyes on him to like, hey, okay, this is where you want to go. This is where you're at. Let's work on this. Let's focus on that. I send him something and we do, Zooms back and forth about, just kind of a virtual, workout game plan, and then we track that. And, if they're out of state or, not local enough to be in person working, then I break down their video, right? And not like, hey, swing mechanic this, swing, because they're going to have a hitting cut. I'm not replacing anybody by any means. I'm just an added resource, no different than somebody getting an extra tutor, right? And so what it really comes down to is the intent on what they're practicing daily. And if they struggle, like here's an example, is I was able to last summer, there was 2026 who I said, send me every game, every swing that every at bat for the next, few tournaments over a month. And I got to see probably, they sent me 18 at bats, whatever it was. And I noticed one thing is that when he kept swinging and missing, it was on the high fastball up and away. And so we identified it. Because if you want to play at the next level, you can't strike out on that much, right? Like you are in summer, and specifically on a fastball that's a strike. Like there's a hole in your swing. So we identify it and we start to implement drills that would help that specific pitch. We make a slight adjustment on mechanics to bring it to his attention. He goes to his hitting coach and they come up with a more specific plan of action within it. But it's about awareness. And it's about having a scouting report and knowing it before it's too late. Because Mark Marquis, great head coach at Stanford University, one of the most winningest coaches. I've been around him for a long time. I'm blessed to do that. I've learned a lot from that man. Is he would always say, specifically to recruiting, is you can't change the spots on a cheetah.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? Is they kind of are who they are. And when we go back, remember I just said, I was like, when a scout looks back, they want to look at approach. They want to look at swing and miss. They want to look at athleticism. Just like the junior or senior comes to me, it's like, it's almost a little too late, man. It's going to be a hard road to fix throwing strikes. It's going to be a hard road to teach more contact. And so those things come into mind a little bit. But for the specific players, it's more intentional based off of what they are and who they are and what skill set they have. And, we use blast to measure metrics, such as bat speed or find deficiencies or add strengths to it. And then, hey, let's build bat speed. Like nobody ever said you have too much bat speed. So let's start throwing the med ball around. Let's start swinging some different bats, create more feel. So just really more intentional about what they're doing and how they're challenging themselves on a daily basis. And that's part of our mental game stuff is like, what are you doing? What are you doing today to help you tomorrow?
Right. A leopard doesn't shed its spots. That's something that I've always said, very, very similar in nature. So
Yeah.
we're gonna take a quick pause for our sponsor here, but I'm gonna pose a question to you, which can lead into our the third portion of this, which is the mental side of things. And this is a personal question to you. What we'll answer this after the sponsor's piece here. What's a time in your career specifically that you were sad? most everyone, when we have conversations like this, they always talk about the great things, the trophies on the wall, and everything that goes along with playing the game. But as you know, the game is a roller coaster. There's, as you have already said, there's more downs than there are ups. So, what's a time that you were most sad, and then how you overcame that, and then obviously how does that lead into you now coaching other kids on the mental approach to that? So we're gonna take a break. We'll come right back to that question.
As we're talking about the challenges coaches face with young athletes, it reminds me of something that affects every youth sports organization, the administrative nightmare that can pull coaches away from actually coaching. I recently spoke with Jennifer from the Riverside Youth Soccer League, and she told me something that really stuck with me. She said, "We were spending more time managing registrations and chasing down forms than we were developing players." Sound familiar? That's exactly why organizations across the country are turning to OperationPlayerAssist.com. They specialize in handling all those behind-the-scenes headaches that eat up your time. Registration systems that actually work, automated communication tools that keep parents informed without blowing up your phone, and emergency response protocols that give you confidence when things go sideways. Jennifer's League saw immediate results. Registration time cut in half, parent complaints about communication dropped to almost zero, and here's the best part: coaches could focus on coaching instead of paperwork. If you are tired of administrative chaos stealing time from what really matters, developing young athletes, I encourage you to schedule a free 15-minute demo with the team at OperationPlayerAssist.com. See firsthand how they can streamline your operation. Visit OperationPlayerAssist.com and click Schedule Demo to book your 15-minute consultation, because when the administrative burden is lighter, everyone wins. Coaches, parents, and most importantly, the kids. OperationPlayerAssist.com, supporting the game behind the game.
All right, welcome back. John, I posed that question to you before we left, which is what's the time in your career where you're most sad? What pops into your head?
Yeah, first pop, first thought was when I got released in the minor leagues, and my first it was year three that I got released. Um, my first year was decent. Like you said, seventh round draft pick. I really didn't handle minor league baseball well at all. And I'll tell you why is there was a specific article that came out, and it was after I got drafted, and I didn't have like an advisor, I didn't have an agent. I like I had a couple family friends that have gone through the process. So it was like, hey, when they called, I'm like, sign me up. Where do I sign? Can I be there tomorrow? Because I love to play baseball and I want to play more baseball, right? Like I wasn't about give me an extra 10 grand, whatever it was. And so I get there and I start playing, and the coaches wanted to, hey, your arm's average at shortstop. Let's try to get a little stronger arm. Okay. Hey, you have pop, but we think you could have more pop. Why don't you try this with your stance? And what I wish I knew the fact to say, this is what I do really well, and I'm going to stick to that. Let's maybe meet somewhere in the middle. I'll try something because it might unlock something, but I'm not going to overhaul something. And what I really felt happened was I started to try to please too many people. And I started to play the game with like a label of like this article came out, was like, hey, Jon was the first shortstop taken in this year's draft. Well, what I didn't realize is that how the minor league system really worked, that the year before they drafted like 6 shortstops in the first 10 rounds. And so like there we are. And I was on the team. I was starting at shortstop. I had Gene Segura playing second base, who made a lot of money in the big leagues. You had a lot of big leaguers on the team. Didn't know it at the time, but like great players. And I was like, this article came out and they're like, first shortstop taken, like, yeah, look, he could pass this guy up and he can make it to the big leagues. I'm like, holy smoke, I can make it to the big leagues? Like, I'm just here playing baseball. And I'm like, yeah, I got to get a stronger arm. I got to hit more power. And I started to kind of get away from my process of just going out and playing and doing my thing. And I always worked hard, maybe a little bit too hard. I think I is there a way to say, I think I cared too much? I mentioned that earlier, is I think I cared too much about it. Whereas like a players would strike out and I would be like, oh, I gotta do more. What the heck just happened? Blah, 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 blah. Where another player struck out or went over three and they're like, no, I'll get him tomorrow. No biggie. I'm like, do you not care? Well, that guy was playing in the big leagues. And so like, and when you do play every day, you got to be able to turn the page. And so like, those are things I'm thinking of, but like minor league career happened, a couple injuries, that's set me back, whatever. It's part of it. Now I tell the kids a setback's a setup for a comeback, right? So it's like, what's the perspective on it? And instead of trying to do more when I got on the field, I was trying to make up for lost time. And long story short, I got released. And that was a really hard moment when somebody says, because they're like, there's always tomorrow, there's always tomorrow, there's always, and I say, BS. When you get cut and you get released, there's not tomorrow, right? Because that's the reality of it at the higher level. And so that was a really tough moment. Really lost, really confused. And, I was like, all right, well, and I remember writing, just like going and writing because I had so many thoughts in my mind, right? And just, I wrote specifically like 6, 7 pages of something. And I ended up going to play independent baseball. And my goal, and I remember writing this somewhere on the internet, like a tweet or a Facebook, I was like, getting another opportunity. I'm going to make it back, give it everything that I got to get where I want to go. And that's to the big leagues. And what I did is I tried to get it back all in one swing, all in one play. And I didn't trust the process. And I didn't understand the long term. I was trying to get that quick fix, get me out of independent ball. I'll go ball out. I'll go. And so what I learned was just like, and then you get punched in the face, right? And you start sucking, and then you're dealing with different things, and you're not playing, and so that was by far the toughest, probably year and a half mentally, because then my game started to it just faded out, and I was, the things I used to do well, I wasn't doing well because I was trying to do more, and that's, in summary, like I'm trying to help these kids not do what I did, right? And do the good things. And a lot of players would love to be a 7th-round draft pick or just even get an opportunity in pro ball. And I'm trying to just share some light on that through my experience.
So what specifically are you able to share with them? How are you able to help them, from the mental side of it? What are your experiences with Ken and Brian specifically that, maybe that you try to teach your athletes today?
Well, I literally will tell them this does not work, right? Because like if they're trying something that, not just me, like there's no one way to do things, but like it's not just my experience, it's also the 11 years of coaching that I've had, where I've seen a team of 30 each year, 35, 40 each year. So we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of players, and I've recruited those players, a lot of those players, 2, 3 years before they stepped on campus. So I start to see their development as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, and then they get on campus and I get to see them for more years. And so I get to see a kid cycle for like 6 years. And I've seen the movie enough to know that mindset doesn't work. More so, I've seen what really works successfully. Let's learn from this guy. Let's try to implement it this way in your own way. I want you to think about it. I want you to think about this idea. Come back and tell me how you're resonating that idea and how we can and take action on it within your own game. That's really what it kind of comes down to, is just like use my experience to say like, that swing doesn't work. That mental approach doesn't work. You're too fragile. That's how I thought. I know it's not. Try this, right? And once again, I do not have all the answers by any means, but I do have experience, and I have seen certain things happen to where if I could share that, then maybe it clicks with them a little bit quicker than it normally would.
So you really have the ability to do this, on this, this one-on-one sort of stage of, customizing and tailoring approaches, physical, mental, and recruiting approaches to where they're at in that moment and how you can make them better.
Very well said. I'm I'm going to say that exact line. That's that's
You can,
that's exactly it. Yeah.
you can
That's what it comes down to.
you can snip this. We'll give it to
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, but I do go and talk to teams, Tony. I do talk to high school teams. I talk to some travel teams. I do like big Zooms, and then it's more of a general approach idea within it, right? You can't touch specifics when you're talking to a group, but like usually what people get out of my conversations, like I need to improve and I need to work harder and more intentful within my work, right? Because what I like to say is like if only 3% of high school kids or whatever get to play at the next level, well, are you acting like the 3% or are you acting like the 97%? Because if you're doing what everybody else is doing, you're not going to get the 3% rules. And so it's a simple formula. If all things are created equal, how are you separating yourself on a day-to-day basis? And that's kind of the mindset approach too. Is just like, okay, I'm gonna go work smarter and harder than everybody else.
When you're having those larger discussions, how do you help? I mean, I guess even on the individual side, how do you help prevent the family? Because it's a family's decisions. Parents are involved in this, and I think help make the wrong decision. But how do you make them not go above their pay grade when it comes to recruiting? And clearly, this is just happening. I mean, I don't even know. We clearly don't have time to get into the transfer portal madness. But part of the problem, not all of the problem, but part of it is they're just going way above their pay grade, getting cut, and then having to jump ship and go somewhere else.
Hmm.
How do you help that conversation and how can we help prevent that from happening?
Well, you have an iPhone.
I do.
I have an iPhone. I think 9 out of 10 people that listen to this are going to have an iPhone. Maybe 8 out of 10. Majority, 80%. We buy the iPhone or they buy the Android because they believe in that product. That they know when they buy the product what they're going to get from it. Okay? And when that product shuts down and it reboots, they know it's going to reboot and get right back to what that product does. I use that exact analogy with your game as a player. What are you bringing to the table when they recruit you, when you step foot on campus? How are you going to help them win? How are they going to rely on you? How are they going to trust you in the big spots? And when you think about the product is in order to not get booted out of a program is like help your team win. Add value to the coaches, add value to the program. And some guys, like it's not really an academic booster anymore. Like, hey, this guy's going to help our program academically because he's a 4.0 and he could walk on. Like, that's not, might be a thing, but it's not nearly as thing as it was. But it's like, if you're good, you'll stick around. If you add value, you stick around, you help your team, and you put yourself in a good position to stay. But if you don't, and your product isn't as good or it didn't improve from the time you got recruited on, you're out. It's kind of a simple formula. So in summary, it's like you're only as good as your product. So let's really improve your product now so that when you do get there, you can thrive and not survive.
Great. It's crazy. I think we've only scratched the surface of all this discussion, and we're kind of bumping up against the clock a little bit. So let me just pose a couple final questions to you. Um, First one just being what's some of the best advice? Doesn't have to be anything specific. What's the best advice any coach has ever given you?
Yeah, one that stuck with me, Bill Mosiello, TCU offensive coach, has been around a lot, but he coached me in the minor leagues. We have just talked to him yesterday, fantastic relationship. And he told me early on when I was at Stanford, he's like, I was a volunteer at Stanford. He's like, hey, just be where your feet are. Just put your head down and work, and everything else will take care of itself. And every day, every year, every month, the coaching carousel is crazy, and you're like, what's the next? I was just present as can be, and I tried to improve and help the team win. And 10 years went by really fast, and here we are again. I'm doing the same thing, and I'm grateful for that advice. I know exactly where I was standing on Stanford's campus when I heard that, and for me, that was really good advice. Quickly, other advice that weighed on me a lot was, and I don't really know him, is Andy Lopez, the former Arizona coach, is when I did get recruited to go there. I went on a visit, and unofficial visit, but I sat in the dugout, and he told me one thing. This isn't my punchline point here, but he was like, I like this, he says, he's like, do you know the difference between a rock and a jelly bean? And he said, a rock is hard on the outside and hard on the inside. A jelly bean is hard on the outside and soft on the inside. We want rocks. And then here, that was just a quick side note, but this is what he told me, not told me, told his presser when he retired. He said 5 things. He's like, I would like to share 5 things, and I'm going to butcher how he said it, but he's like, 5 things I've learned. Don't lose your life. I think he battled some sickness. Don't lose your family. Don't lose your finances. Don't lose your integrity. And there was a 5th. And for me, it really hit home is like family. Don't lose your family. Don't lose your family over this. And everybody's different, and it's a tough job. It's a tough profession. And for me, that was really important. So those 2 things have carried with me for, the past 5 to 10 years for sure.
Yeah, probably the best way to end that right now. Can I kind of just bookmarks the whole bookends, excuse me, the whole conversation, and brings it back to family. No other questions are needed here. You left coaching because of family, and you're doing what you're doing and passionate about what you're doing, and doing a great job at it because of family. So Jon, thank you for coming on and sharing your insight into what you're doing, how you're doing it, and all the benefit that you're providing young athletes. Any final thoughts to add to this episode?
If anything can help anybody, then it's worth it, right? And in the platform that here we are sharing this, and you sharing insights and having platforms, it's really important, because some things click at different times for different people, and a lot of things that I'm saying and you're saying and other people preach are the same things that a lot of parents are preaching. It just doesn't click at the right time for everybody, right? And so yeah, you just have to pay attention to it, and detach a little bit more to see, like, oh, I understand what he's saying now, and I want to understand what that person's trying to get across, and the coach is trying to help me. He's not trying to hurt me, because I haven't seen a coach sign up to coach and get paid to coach or volunteer to coach because he's like, I'm going to hurt some kids today and I'm going to lie to them today. Like, no, coaches want to coach because they want to help, and parents have to understand that a little bit more. Is like, everybody wants to help your kid. The coach just has so many responsibilities that it's like sometimes hard to worry about everybody's feelings.
Jon, great wrap up. Appreciate that. Follow Jon on X, on Instagram, his podcast on Apple, and then go check out his website. Has a lot of great resources there, along with an ebook that can help you along the way. Jon, thanks again. Appreciate your time, and good luck in your business.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.